This video has been brought to you by Tees for Tims. Remember, if you're looking for some really good quality Celtic merch at this delicate time where you might not want to put money into the club, then choose the independent retailers like Tees for Tims. There is some fantastic designs available all across the website, like this one I am wearing now, amongst many others. If you're looking for gifts this Christmas time, anything at all, check out Tees for Tims and you will find so many there. Use code Ryan118 for a 10% discount at checkout. It's the 16th of October and Tam Mullen has gave Dermot Desmond, Michael Nicholson and Peter Lawwell a line of his toaster. Because we have a Celtic transfer talk to do, and apparently we're about to spend £6 million on a player. I'm as confused as you, trust me. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Thank you all so much for the support you've shown during this international break. One thing I wasn't expecting to do as we wind down for the return of Celtic was do an episode of Celtic Transfer Talk. But that's what we're doing today. Out of the blue, it looks as though Celtic are set to make their first signing of the January transfer window. Unexpected news falling this afternoon, which appears to be legitimate. Someone's coming through the door. So around midday, this headline dropped in the Times, out of nowhere, with no prior context, with no rumours or anything like that. Former Liverpool midfielder Bobby Clark is set to join Celtic in January. The 20-year-old midfielder who moved to RB Salzburg for £10 million in 2024 is currently on loan at Derby County and is keen to return to the UK with the prospect of regular football. That was the exclusive by Martin Hendry of the Times that came out, as I said, around midday. It's now got everyone talking online. A lot of people sceptical at first when they seen it. It was one of those articles that's behind a paywall, we need to pay to read. People thought it was just a lot of nonsense, but no, this seems to be perfectly legitimate. So what are the details? So behind that paywall, the details are fairly straightforward and there isn't a huge article there to read. Essentially, the deal is reporting that the transfer will go through at the turn of the year ahead of Celtic's first game in January against Rangers. And apparently Celtic are set to sign Bobby Clark for £6 million. Brendan Rodgers and Celtic have agreed a permanent deal, which will see the end of his Derby County loan at New Year, and then he will come straight up the road to Celtic directly from RB Salzburg on a permanent basis. It's somebody who we have been linked with in the past. I've spoken about Bobby Clark. I think it was maybe this time last year, just following the summer transfer window. There was talk that Celtic were looking at him before he got the move to RB Salzburg. But he moved off course for a huge fee, £10 million, a fee that Celtic were never going to pay for a then 19-year-old. It now seems that we're going to pay £6 million for a 20-year-old, a little bit more experienced now. But out of nowhere to a lot of confusion. And there is a lot of confusion and a lot of scepticism as well that goes alongside this potential signing, because it's in an area of the pitch where Celtic probably don't need a player right now. So a lot of fans are putting two and two together. Is this because we are losing someone in the January window? People are already jumping to the conclusion that Rio Hatate must be out the door. He's the evident guy to go to here. He's the one that would make most sense. It's not going to be Callum McGregor. It's not going to be Benji Nigren. It's not going to be the guy we spent £11 million on in Arne Engels. The only one that really makes sense to justify spending £6 million on someone is Rio Hatate. And that could be the case, but we don't have any detail of that. It could just be Celtic looking at an available option, deciding this is the future of Celtic's midfield, and potentially the long-term Callum McGregor replacement. He's a central midfielder, kind of similar to that early Callum McGregor mould as well. Plays in the middle of the park, not right up as a number 10, not as far back as a number 6. He's somebody who probably shares a lot of the same attributes, a lot of the same qualities that a Callum McGregor did in his initial years under Brendan Rodgers. So there's a lot of questions coming out of this, but ultimately nobody has the answer to them. Does it mean that he is Callum McGregor's, the heir to Callum McGregor's throne? We don't know. Does it mean Rio Hatate is away? We don't know. Does it mean that Brendan Rodgers has greenlighted this signing and is staying beyond the 3 years he initially signed with the club? We don't know. People are going to be eager to create narratives off the back of this. But the simple fact of the matter is this: nobody knows Celtic's motivation to signing Bobby Clark for £6 million. Only the club do at this moment of time, and we'll only know the benefits of that as time goes on as well. So you can try and concoct as many reasons as you like. Simply put, Celtic are signing Bobby Clark because somebody at the club likes Bobby Clark, whether that's Tisdale, whether that's Rodgers, whether that's the upper management, we don't know. But it looks as though it's happening. So, of course, Bobby Clark is a product of Liverpool's youth system. He was initially signed from Newcastle, but was mostly brought up through the Liverpool Academy and their youth levels. He was then signed by former Liverpool assistant manager Pep Lijnders. You might remember him from being Jurgen Klopp's assistant. He became Salzburg manager a couple of years ago, or last year, I should say, and was signed by Pep Lijnders. However, it's not went according to plan. He's ended up back at Derby County after only making 25 appearances for Salzburg, and now apparently wants a full-on return to the UK. Clearly must just want to be closer to home. Celtic now offering him the best option. He did sign a 5-year contract after that £10 million fee. So Salzburg are losing a bit of money here. They're clearly willing to cut their losses after he's basically started every game for Derby this season. What are Celtic getting themselves into? It's very unclear when you have a player at this age, at this level of their career, with this inexperience. But it's obviously something you're hoping for a return on investment for. You're hoping he turns out to be the next Matt O'Reilly or the next Nicholas Kuhn, these big fees that we've seen in recent years. Will we get that? Only time will tell. So these are his stats over recent years. You'll see on screen he's played 8 games already in the Championship this season, which is 8 out of 9. He's only missed 1 game so far in a return to the Championship for Derby County. But at RB Salzburg last year, he played 17 times in the Austrian Bundesliga and a further 6 times in the Champions League. So that means at the age of 20 years old, he already has Champions League experience, which is something Celtic, of course, look for and aspiring to be a Champions League club at least. He's only played, by the time he signs for Celtic, he'll have just over 50 senior appearances in professional football. Maybe not the level that most fans are looking for, but these are, of course, the markets Celtic shop in. This is what we're used to. This is what we've become in this day and age. So it could turn out to be a great signing, a great bit of business. He was very highly rated at Liverpool as a youngster, and I remember talking about him, as I said, in the channel last year when his name was popped up with Celtic. But it also could turn out to be an absolute disaster. He might struggle to keep up with the physicality. He might struggle to, just show the overall quality. It might not go well. It's just a calculated gamble. But at $6 million, clearly the club sees something. Because as I said, unless Tam Mullins gave Elena the toaster, there's no way the club would justify $6 million in a 20-year-old if they don't see something in him. You might also remember Lee Clark, who used to manage Kilmarnock. Funnily enough, that is actually Bobby's dad. His father has experience up in Scotland through a short tenure with Kilmarnock back in the 2016-17 campaign. But that's the only ties he has with Scottish football right now until we see him signed permanently for Celtic. Listen, we all asked for the club to spend money. We all asked for investment in the team. Is this a sign of what's to come? I hope so. It also brings a lot of questions up around the excuses for not spending money. If they were citing tax reasons and European tax laws, why suddenly are we spending money now when we're putting pressure on them? Does it just back up the fact that they were all nonsense excuses? That's a conversation for another day. I think what matters most is seeing what comes next and ultimately how well Bobby Clark fits into this team. The bigger questions that surround the context of the signing, they can only be answered as time goes on. There's no point in spending too much time speculating on that right now. But Celtic look to be making their first signing of the January window. It comes in the form of Bobby Clark, formerly of Liverpool, now of RB Salzburg and Derby County. And I'm hoping he's a star in the making. Simple as that. Funnily enough, that's not the only transfer-related story that's been circling online this morning. This one's kind of went under the radar. I also don't think it's one worth reading into too much. But this popped up on Leeds United News. It was an exclusive by Graham Bailey, saying that Ilan Meslier, the former Leeds United number 1, is being linked with Celtic, or that Celtic are looking at Aaron Meslier. Now, you might remember his name from a few years ago. He was Leeds #1. He was playing every week in the Premier League for them. He's now their #3, and his contract expires at the end of the season. So this was the exclusive from Graham Bailey, saying that Celtic are amongst clubs monitoring his situation ahead of the January transfer window. Meslier is a very good goalkeeper that if Celtic signed, he would be an upgrade. I have no shadow of a doubt about that. And that's, of course, talking about an upgrade on Kasper Schmeichel. I'm not going to lie, I'm not convinced on that. I remember watching Meslier a few times for Leeds and thinking that he was pretty garbage. There was also times where he looked good. He just looks like one of those hot and cold keepers that don't have a lot of reliability around them. And with his contract expiring, it would make sense. Celtic like to go nice and cheap, especially with goalkeepers. We haven't spent money on a goalkeeper since Barkas. It's almost kind of scarred us. Joe Hart was picked up on a free. Kasper Schmeichel was picked up on a free. Vinny Sinsal was picked up for £1 million. It would make sense from that point of view. I just don't think that this is who Celtic should be going for. I personally would rather see Vinny Sinsalo played there. I don't think there's much in this, to be honest. Whether we're looking at him or not, different story, but I don't think there's anything much beyond that. I don't think Celtic are actually going to try and sign him on a pre-contract. I think other clubs will probably get in ahead of Celtic anyway, and I don't see it amounting to much. But that story is doing the rounds. You might see it pop up on social media over the next few hours. We'll see if anything comes of it. Right, that does it for today. I can't believe we're doing a Celtic transfer talk in mid-October, and I can't believe it's a Celtic transfer talk that basically involves a signing. You know, it's not just a daft rumour. It looks as though Celtic have made a signing. So we'll wait and see what other news comes out. We might not hear official communique from the club until January on this. I don't know how they'll navigate it. We're not used to signing players this early ahead of the January window. So we'll wait and see. If you've enjoyed, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. And I'll see you all next time.